Hello and welcome to another episode of Sideline Story, your destination for sports news, analysis and discussions. I'm Yang Guang, and this week we touch on those clutch moments in sports. What are the most iconic buzzer beaters in sports history? Are clutch players born or made? For this discussion, I'm joined here with my brilliant co-hosts Tian Yu and Brandon Yates. Alright, to kick things off, I watched a miraculous NBA game last week, the Chicago Bulls against the LA Lakers. I would call the final minute of that game the best minute in this season's NBA. Chicago was down by 5 with 12 seconds left, and they buried 3 triples in the final 11 seconds, including a half-court logo shot made by Josh Giddey that
was insane.
That beat buzzer and led the Bulls to a comeback victory. It reminded me of so many moments where one shot, one goal, or even a one save determined the victory or even a title, like Iker Casillas' big denial of Iron Robben's one-on-one shot in the 2010 World Cup final, like Ray Allen's clutch 3 in the 2013 NBA Finals, like Novak Djokovic saving 2 championship points from Roger Federer in the 2019 Wimbledon final, like Max Verstappen overtaking Lewis Hamilton in the final lap to take the Drivers' Championship trophy. So Tian Yu, what do you think is the most impressive clutch moment performance in sports?
Well, as a Madrid fan, I've always been so lucky to witness some truly legendary clutch moments. But I think nothing comes close to the 2014 Champions League final. And that night in Lisbon wasn't just about winning a Madrid derby. It was the moment that defined an era for Real Madrid. And I watched that game back in high school, and it was over 10 years ago. But my memory about the game was still fresh, as if it just took place yesterday. And at that time, Real Madrid had an incredible attacking trio, Karim Benzema, Gareth Bale, and Cristiano Ronaldo.
The so-called BBC.
Yeah,
right?
the BBC. But Atletico Madrid, with their relentless defense and sharp counterattacks, were an absolute nightmare to break down. They struck first, taking advantage of a rare mistake from Iker Casillas, and from that point on, it felt like they are an impossible wall to climb. And as the minutes ticked away, Atletico were on the verge of history. We can see that Diego Simeone was, urging the fans to raise their voices, and Atletico players were throwing themselves at every ball. And in the stands, on the camera, you could see Real Madrid fans, some crying, others just staring in disbelief. And after that, 3 straight years of heartbreak in the semifinals of the Champions League, led by Mourinho, it looked like that we were going to fall short again. But then, in the 93rd minute, 92 minutes, 48 seconds on the clock to be exact, everything's changed. Luka Modric delivered a perfect corner into the box, and Sergio Ramos rose above everyone, meeting the ball with a bullet header into the bottom corner. So the moment the ball hit the net, the entire stadium just erupted, and that goal didn't just save the final, it changed the trajectory of Real Madrid for the next decade. Just think about it. What if Atletico had held on? Who knows what would have happened? Maybe Real Madrid wouldn't have built the dynasty that followed. Maybe the club wouldn't have developed that unshakable belief in comebacks, in fighting till the very last second. But that goal became the blueprint.
Yeah, it's truly one moment that determines Madrid's course in the following 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Brandon, any such moments that rocked your world?
I mean, there's been several. I mean, just staying with Real Madrid. I know Tianyu will like this, that I'm remaining with his team. But of course, that match definitely stands out. But, there have been players across multiple sports that have delivered several clutch moments, which I think on the international stage is pretty remarkable. And somebody that kind of divides opinions amongst some Real Madrid fans, particularly, fans that are Spanish and are from Madrid. Gareth Bale, the clutch moments that he delivered in finals is truly remarkable, and I think he deserves a lot more credit, than he gets. I mean, he scored 4 cup finals for Real Madrid, including in that match that Tianyu mentioned.
Yeah.
And of course, two goals in a Champions League final. Of course, one of them was that long range distance where Karius completely lost his mind in that match for Liverpool, the goalkeeper. But then, of course, the overhead kick. I
Yes.
think that's something that will live in the minds of football fans for a long time, not just Real Madrid fans, but a neutral like me. But something that I will remember till the day that I die as a die-hard Springbok rugby fan. We also have, just like Real Madrid, the Springboks also have a history of producing players that have produced clutch moments over several decades. And some of them have done it on several occasions. And it's strange. It normally we've seemingly developed these players in a particular position. So in rugby, there's a position called fly half, which to compare, it's quite similar to quarterback in American football. And it started all the way back in 1995, where just after the apartheid regime and, South Africa hosted its first ever Rugby World Cup on home soil. And I don't even think South Africa were ranked in the top 10 at that point. So they had no hopes of winning the final, winning the tournament, and they somehow got to the final. And after extra time, it was level. Points were scored in extra time, but in like the last seconds of, that World Cup final, the fly half for South Africa, Joel Stransky landed a drop kick against our bitter rivals New Zealand to win our first ever Rugby World Cup title. And it was on home soil. So that was also just something that really changed the landscape of South African sport and had a huge impact on South African politics as well. It was a massive unifying factor for the country that had been divided for so many years, particularly on racial lines. And then many, many years again, in 2019, Handré Pollard also delivered moments where he scored match-winning points in that final. And then there was also a moment where Cheslin Colby also scored a really iconic try in that final. But then going into and so Handré Pollard was also a fly half in that 2019 World Cup. But then again in 2023, where we won another World Cup, Handré Pollard hadn't played rugby for I think 4 months. In the quarterfinal against the host nation France, he also scored a match-winning penalty in the last 3 minutes to win that match by a single point. And then just a couple of days later in the semi-final, he scored a match-winning penalty again in the semi-final to give South Africa another 1 point victory
Wow.
before going on to the final to win the final. This didn't, it wasn't really a match-winning penalty, but South Africa also won the final by a single point. So that 2023 final, winning the quarterfinal, semi-final, and final by 1 point just shows this clutch reputation that South African fly halves and the South African rugby team has.
Yeah, it's always good to see your home country doing good, especially in clutch moments in sports. Now, let me bring you back to the World Table Tennis Team Championships in Japan 24 years ago, China versus South Korea in the semifinals. In the previous four matches, the two teams were level at 2-all. The fifth deciding match was China's Liu Guozhen against South Korea's Kim Tae-soo. South Korea's Kim won the first game and took the upper hand in the second. Liu had to save 2 match points to keep China staying in the competition. In the deciding third game, Liu was once again falling behind in the clutch time. This time it's worse. And South Korea's Kim earned 5 match points. 1 more point could have got South Korea the victory. But 1 point by another, Liu saved all 5 match points and made the comeback for China. I mean, any miss or any hesitation could have seen China eliminated. I was a 10-year-old boy watching that match in front of the TV, and in the end, I was like this. My jaw was on the floor. I remember when the match was won, Team China coach Cai Guoqiang was trembling and couldn't even stand straight. So yes, the biggest clutch moment in Chinese sports history, I would say, came from the country's most dominant sport, table tennis, just classic. I remember after that match, there emerged a saying that is very popular in China. If you want to marry someone like Liu Guozhen, because he's so reliable. But looking back at that match, I'm just super impressed by Liu's game attitude towards the end. He didn't play safe. He kept attacking and attacking, not afraid of any mistakes. I guess that mentality was like, in the end, he was telling himself, don't panic. Whatever happens, happens. Just do what you got to do. I mean, it's a bit like in basketball games when clock is ticking down to the final seconds, it's all tied up. You have to throw a game winner. You must earn it by doing something extraordinary to make it happen. Do what you have to do and hope for the best. But meantime, if we take a look at other sports like football, in those game-deciding penalty shootouts, the mentality there might be a little bit different. It's more like, I must not miss it, because missing a penalty is seen as a huge mistake in football games. So I guess there are two types of clutch moment mentalities in sports. One, I can make it, and two, I can't miss it. Tianyu, would you agree? And which one do you think is tougher or crueler in sports games?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question. It's, at first glance, you would think that creating magic or miracle in those win or go home moments is way harder than just avoiding mistakes. Because after all, pulling off something extraordinary, as you said, like in basketball, Tracy McGrady's 13 points in 33 seconds.
Yeah.
Miracles like this require a rare mix of talent, confidence, and a bit of luck. You need that spark of genius, the perfect execution, and sometimes even all the stars aligning just right. Those are the moments that we remember forever. But the more I think about it, the harder challenge might actually be avoiding mistakes.
Right.
Because when the pressure is sky high, whether it's in the final minutes of a Champions League final knockout game or an NBA Finals Game 7, your body tenses up, your mind races, and suddenly even the simplest plays feel like 10 times harder. So staying composed, making the right decision, not slipping up when everything is on the line, that was brutal for everyone. So take the 2016 NBA final as an example. Everyone kind of remembers Kyrie Irving's clutch 3, but what about the Warriors? They had multiple possessions to take back the lead, but they rushed shots, made a lot of poor mistakes, and they ultimately collapsed. So I think sometimes maybe it's not about making the big play, it's about not messing up. Talking about the year 2016, I kind of, I was also thinking about the Euro 2016 final between Portugal and France. Portugal lost Cristiano Ronaldo early in the game, and from that moment on, it became a test of resilience. France had the home crowd, more attacking power, and multiple chances to seal the win, but they couldn't break the through. And Portugal, on the other hand, played very smart. They stayed disciplined and they waited for their moment. And when it finally came, it wasn't Ronaldo or some superstar in the team. It was Eder, a player no one expected, who took his chance and scored the winner. So I think it goes without saying that France had more talent at that time, but Portugal just made fewer mistakes. So I think for an ordinary player, avoiding mistakes is the best thing you can do on the pitch. Not everyone is going to have their T-Mac moment, but not everyone can be Sergio Ramos in the 93rd minute. But everyone can focus, just make the smart play, and not let your nerves get the best of you. And in the biggest games, sometimes I think that's what really makes the difference.
Yeah, when it's clutch time, I think it's a huge test for one's mentality. Think about it. You can score 100 straight penalties in training or in regular games, but if you miss one penalty in the final of a big competition like the World Cup, you can miss everything.
You can be the national criminal.
Yes. Now let's talk about those clutch players who made countless breathtaking moments in his sports history. First name popping into my mind, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
There were 2 consecutive games where he made the game-winning buzzer beaters, and I watched those 2 games. It's just unbelievable. And Emiliano Martinez in football, it seems like to me, the more clutch it gets, the more excited he gets. And Novak Djokovic in tennis.
Yep.
He's more precise in those do or die moments
Yeah.
than usual. Seemingly never gets nervous. So Tianyu, who are the most reliable players in those clutch moments across different sports?
Well, yeah, when we talk about those clutch athletes, those who thrive under the brightest lights, I think I'm also gonna mention Argentina player, Angel Di Maria. He has to be in the conversation because that guy just doesn't just show up in the finals. He kind of defines them. He was man of the match in the 2014 Champions League final, tearing Atletico apart. Also, he scored the winner in the 2021 Copa America final against Brazil. And the very next year in the World Cup final, he struck again, helping Argentina raise the long-awaited trophy.
Unless he's playing in Manchester, yeah. But what a
Moments.
waste of money that was. For some reason, Di Maria just couldn't do it in Manchester and then complained about the weather, complained about the food. So, yeah, I'm thrilled to hear about Angel Di Maria.
And also, apart from that, in basketball, I think, apart from as Yang Guang mentioned, Kobe Bryant was definitely the name we're gonna mention, and Michael Jordan. He was also, the ultimate closer. 6 finals, 6 rings, 6 finals MVPs. Whether it was the shot against the Cavs, or his flu game in the 1997, or the dagger against the Jazz in '98. Jordan didn't just play in pressure moments; he owned them. So,
it's a good saying.
Yeah, and in tennis, I think I agree with Yang Guang. Novak Djokovic is built for clutch moments. The man has saved match points in Grand Slam finals, and he flipped impossible situations into victories. And just take a look at the last year's Olympic men's singles finals against Carlos Alcaraz, who is 16 years younger than him. He was down matches, his age stood against him, and yet he still found a way to win.
Yeah, definitely those names have one thing in common. That's the mental fortitude, the big mental fortitude. Brandon, question here. Just imagine your team is in the Champions League final and it's the penalty shootout going on. You have to pick the one player to take the first penalty. Who would that be? You can choose any player here.
Oh, that's clutch. That's would be able to step up in a certain moment. That's a very good question. Because when you think of football players over the years, I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, someone that's been incredibly consistent and scores goals on the big stages. He hasn't really been that great with penalties over the years. I think back to Manchester United in 2008. I mean, that was a huge moment where nobody thought that he would miss that penalty. I think Sergio Ramos is a good one just because he has stepped up in clutch, not necessarily with penalties, but I think, just overall, he seems to have that mentality of really backing himself in any given moment or any given situation. For example, he for a long time was a Real Madrid first choice penalty taker, even though he was a centre back.
Yeah.
So I think he's probably got that mentality of not necessarily the best penalty taker, but probably has the strongest mentality of any footballer recently that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, statistics kind of fail in clutch moments in sports, I guess. Players like Robert Baggio from Italy, he had very high penalty scoring percentage, like 90% something.
And that moment.
Yeah,
we know.
1994 World Cup final against Brazil, he missed the most important penalty in his career. Then, if we take a look at these clutch players, I think there's one thing common in those big names, that is confidence. In clutch moments, they're either trust me, I got this, like Kobe, or I don't care. It means nothing to me, like Balotelli. They are all very confident. But in the latest Champions League quarter-final between Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, I think there are reports that Real's Endrick refused to take the 5th penalty in the shootout. I think in that moment, he kind of got cold feet. You can tell from those players, their body language, their eyes, they're not ready for moments like that. So my question here, Tianyu, what does it take to be a clutch player? Is it hardworking or their personality?
Well, I think it's tempting to say that these clutch players are born. When you look at guys like Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, or Djokovic, it feels like they were born like with ice in their vein. But I think the truth is, I think clutch is trained, not just gifted, because it's true that natural talent plays a role in forming a clutch player. You know, some players just have an instinct for the game, you know, an ability to see plays before they happen. But talent alone doesn't explain why some stars fade under pressure. So the difference lies in mindset, preparation, and experience. You know, for example, we've talked about Djokovic for many times, but early in his career, he wasn't known as, you know, the clutchest player. He struggled in big moments. But over time, he built a mental fortress, trained to embrace pressure and turn into one of the most dominant tiebreak players ever. And the same goes to, you know, other examples as well. You know, Sergio Ramos, he wasn't just born knowing how to score in the 93rd minute of a Champions League final. He kind of developed that mentality, you know, through years of repetition, learning how to stay calm under pressure, and always believing there was one more chance. So I think while some players, you know, might have a natural knack for the big stage, I think clutch performance tends to be built through experience, resilience, and an unshakable mindset. Is I think it's the ability to embrace pressure, not to run from it, and that's something you can train.
Brandon, are clutch players born or made?
Well, the example there that you mentioned, Yang Guang, of, being able to score 100 penalties, whether it be in training or, just in your, maybe like a fourth round, cup exit match where there isn't that much pressure on, all of that kind of thing can happen. But then, for example, in a UEFA Champions League final, someone like Cristiano Ronaldo missing, in 2008, well, he didn't miss. I mean, Peter Cech saved it. So how much of that was down to luck? And how much of it was down to mentality? Was Peter Cech just confident that he would save that penalty? Or did Cristiano Ronaldo just lack the confidence when he did, his usual like stumble approach to a penalty and Peter Cech didn't move? Was that Peter Cech's confidence, or did that completely shake Cristiano Ronaldo because he's never seen that technique not work and Peter Cech stayed glued to the spot? So who wasn't or was clutch in that moment? And then Loris Karius also, in that Champions League final that we mentioned, the blunders that he made, was that due to a lack of confidence? Was it down to, a moment of genius from Gareth Bale from that long distance? Or later on, it was discovered that Karius might have had a concussion from a previous clash in the match that might have resulted in him being completely disorientated in that match, and should the Liverpool manager have taken him off. So I think there's multiple incidents where it's shown that, luck does definitely play a role in clutch moments. And I think I also agree with Tianyu in terms of mentality. I think it is something that can be developed. I think confidence can be developed. But then again, some players that are born with confidence. I come back to the South African rugby team. In 2007, a 20 or 21-year-old, I can't remember, Francois Steyn came into the team, had barely played any matches for the team, and in the final in 2007, he landed several penalties, including one over 50 meters, to lift a World Cup title for South Africa, one that they hadn't lifted in 12 years. And you can't tell me that a 20 or 21-year-old had developed confidence by that stage. Yeah, of course, he was incredibly talented, but I think that confidence must have been innate. He must have been born with that confidence.
Yeah, I guess it's safe to say it takes both nature and nurture and
Yeah.
a little bit of luck to be a player who can always stand out when it matters the most. Looking forward to more clutch moments in sports that will bring us more fiery debates about those clutch players. With that, we end this episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to Sideline Story wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, you can also check our website at radio.cgtn.com. Until next time, stay on the sidelines with us.